Welcome back to the Snow Farms Podcast, episode number 4. I'm your host, Russ, along with my beautiful wife, Andrea, who's always by my side. And I'm very, very happy to be recording this podcast with her. She's trying not to giggle right now, folks. Today is Sunday, September 11th, 2022. And today we're going to be talking about sales on the farm. I got to stop saying, man. My wife is judging me harshly right now.
As I should. It's my job.
It's true. So why is this such a big topic early on? If you're going to start this, you have to just be ruthless, running your farm like a business. You have to be honest with yourself about the prices, price of your labor, depreciation, wear and tear on your rigs, everything. You have to be absolutely ruthless on your honesty in running your homestead as a business. The problem that I've seen a ton in homesteading, small farms, regenerative ag, call it what you want, folks who grew up in a farming family think about farming in a commodity sense. So they're looking at the price of beef at the sale barn. They're looking at the price of beef at Walmart. For you to be successful, you can't compete with Walmart. You can't do it. They run on anywhere from a loss. They sell a ton of products at a loss. And they're running a super small margin, 1% to 5% of the numbers I've seen on their total profit. But they're doing billions of dollars a month in sales. We're not going to do that. I want folks who are willing to pay a premium for really great beef, raised the right way. Pork, sausage, eggs, meat birds, comfrey, goose, geese, laying hens, all these things. Everything that we have is for sale. So the biggest thing about that is knowing what your costs are, what your input costs are, getting your mileage captured for both yourself and for Uncle Sugar on the IRS side. And the next thing is a lot of what we have, and this is a family tradition for a lot of folks. They get into it because they either grew up on a farm or a farm adjacent. You ever use any of the terms adjacent, Andrea?
No, Russ, I haven't.
Education adjacent? No. I hear adjacent. It's very popular with the kids. So especially in the social justice movement, being adjacent. I love the term adjacent, farm adjacent. So if you had an uncle that had a little farm or a big farm, you're farm adjacent. You're familiar with this. You're comfortable with it. You have a certain level of comfort with it. So when you get into that, one of the big things that I've seen is folks want to do it like Pappy did or Grandpappy did, or this is the way we've always done it. We have 2 neighbors who we're very, very friendly with who live right up the road from us. And they take 20 cows a year, I think right at 20, to the market. We have more demand for our beef than we can sell. We're growing our herd slowly. Again, we bootstrapped everything, haven't taken on any debt. And we see these guys going to the market, and I've talked to them. I'm like, I will give you a 10% premium over whatever the market is that day when we take these cows to the butcher. So not only would they get 10% over spot at that day, they also wouldn't be paying the seller's premium. So here it's roughly almost 20% extra.
Plus, they wouldn't have to load anything.
Yeah, we'd come load, do everything ourselves, take it down to. They don't have to go to the sale barn, sit there, all that stuff. And they just wouldn't. They're not interested in a bit. A 20% premium over with less work, no wear and tear on the rigs, us picking up everything. And it's their prerogative. By all means, they get to do what they want. I'm just always baffled by this because it would be a great deal for us because they do a great job. They spend a ton of time. I know they move their cows around on pastures. They really do raise a premium product, but they're not getting any premium at the sale barn. They're a commodity. So that's one of those things about don't get stuck in that because Pappy always did it this way or this is the only way I know. One of the great things about the world we live in now, there are 100 folks. There are probably 10,000 folks doing this regenerative agriculture at scale, at a pretty good size. Everybody's doing something differently, and there's something to learn. And there are going to be strengths and weaknesses in your region, in your little microenvironment, microclimates that you have. Things are going to work really, really well for you that may not work anywhere else. So don't be afraid to experiment. Don't be afraid to steal every great idea you ever see. My first head coach I worked for, that was one of the things he told me. And at the time, it felt dirty that why would I steal offenses, defenses, inbound plays? Because they work and you don't have to reinvent the wheel and everything. So steal every good idea you see, books, videos, bookmark that stuff where you can come back and read it later. The first thing about selling is marketing. You have to tell your story. So we have a couple ways we do that. We have go ahead, honey.
We have our own Instagram pages. Russ has one and I have one. We also have our own Facebook pages. Plus, we started a blog and this podcast.
So, and then there's also in person. And the big thing about in person are leads, right? And where do you get leads? Well, number one place is work, because you know all those cats. I used a different word with Andrea earlier, but she said I couldn't say that word in the air. But you know all those cats. You know how much money they make, roughly, and you know they have jobs. So those are both really good intros. Your next area that you're going to sell to are friends, and then you have acquaintances, and then I like to talk a lot about 10 mile circle around your house. That is your market. Those are folks that can come to your farm, bring their kids, give a tour, get mauled by geese, leave sobbing. That's what we try and do to everyone that comes to the farm. I had a young man today that the Goose Mafia gave him the business. So that was fun. And then the other thing to think about on where you can be competitive are small colleges and assisted living / nursing homes. So these folks aren't buying the level of your neighborhood McDonald's on beef, but especially in the colleges, you can, on the regenerative agriculture side, the environmental side, the socially conscious side, you can make and Willie Vaughns talks about take a brown person with you. Play that game. For Andrea spent 6 years on college campuses, and I spent 8 coaching. It is definitely a thing. So you want to craft your marketing message to a college differently than what you're crafting a message to a nursing home or assisted living facility, because you're competing strictly on price there. But if you can beat Cisco or whoever their commercial supplier is, that's a great market, and they're buying every week. So and that's one of our goals, is to get big enough to where we can compete in that. I've got a friend that has gotten that big, and it is a very, very lucrative market for them, and they soundly beat Cisco in their market. And nursing homes, old folks will eat all the parts. They'll eat a roast. They have time. They have nothing but time. So they'll eat a half or a whole of a cow, everything that's there. So the next thing is, how much are you charging it? You've developed your market. You've told your story. You've got folks asking questions, and you're selling the features, selling the benefits, not the features of your beef. So you want to charge a premium product. And I think I already talked about this, but I am competing with Whole Foods and Tom Thumb. So my prices are about the same as what you're going to get there. That's our clientele. I'm not trying to compete with Walmart. I don't have any 10-year-old spent dairy cows that totter all the way to the slaughterhouse and just survive long enough to die there. So you need to go and see what they're charging. Look at what grass-fed beef, HEB, and that's been a while since we went to HEB because they don't have them in Oklahoma. Andrea, how do you feel about that?
I'm very saddened.
What do you think about the HEB grocery store?
I love the HEB grocery store.
Why do you love the HEB grocery store?
You can literally find anything there.
It really is second only to Buc-ee's. One of the greatest things about the great state of Texas. But you need to go. I think the last time we looked, grass-fed beef there on the steak side was about $18 a pound. Roasts were around 12, and hamburger was 8 or 9. So we are hugely. That's Trump just took over my body. It's weird. We're very competitive with that. We can definitely give you a better price than Whole Foods and HEB, and it's a very, very profitable thing for us on the farm. So we have friends. Both these folks played for me. I introduced them. They got married. They've got a really great operation. So if you want to go see somebody that's doing a fantastic job of marketing and telling their story, just go to Instagram and look up Thomas Cattle Company. They're in Oriana, Idaho, and Elizabeth Baker, Libby, does a wonderful job telling their story and setting every single day just how hard it is to get beef to your table. One of the other great things, if you haven't watched it, Jeremy Clarkson on Amazon Prime, his farming show, how many was it, 6 episodes?
Mm-hmm.
He did an amazing job because he's super funny, and he tries to pretend he's self-important, but he's very, very, I think, down to earth because he makes fun of himself so much. But he did a lovely job of really showing the realities of how hard it is to make a profit farming commercially. And if you haven't seen that show, it's fantastic. One of the marketing things that I got to stop saying, it just drives her crazy. I get the evil eye. I can feel it. I can feel it. I don't have a degree in broadcasting. I'm a complete amateur, lady.
This is not what he said at the beginning of the podcast.
I may have told you some things when we started dating that weren't 100% true either. One of the marketing things I do is, so we sell beef, pork, meat birds, laying hens, eggs. Someday soon we'll have comfrey. We'll have the stuff in the greenhouse, Muscovy ducks. What else? Geese. So we've got all these things. Goats. I always forget about the goats. How can I forget about the goats? They're so important, Andrew. They live a better life than I do. I'll tell you that, folks. You can't afford them. Once more. Anyways, so we have all these products, and we're getting closer and closer to really being a full-scale little cottage industry. So my first dozen eggs are free. When folks buy beef from me, I'll try and throw in some pork. When they buy pork from me, I'll try and throw in some beef. One of the things to think about is a lot of folks have never had grass-fed beef, and they may have had a friend that tells them it tastes funny. Well, until they try it, they're never going to know. Giving out samples of a steak or a roast and a pound of hamburger is a really good marketing cost. So you can give that away, write it off as marketing costs. Don't say, I'm not giving you legal advice. Check with your CPA or attorney. But these are all things that you can do to expand your market. And one of the things I do know is, for us, we're selling wholes and halves. If you want to get a quarter, you have to find another buddy to buy the other quarter. It just gets, and then the entire beef is split into that half, and everybody has to agree on the cuts. And then we're just going to divvy it out. When we separate that from the freezer boxes, I'm going to do my absolute best to make sure you both get an equal amount of steaks, roasts, hamburger, everything that way. So box beef packs, hard to be profitable on. That's one of the things that I think you have to look at that when you get big enough to be doing that as a loss leader to get folks in. But if you can find a way to make that profitable, that's on you. I haven't seen it yet. The other thing is, we want to be your one-stop shop for meat. And ideally, if we do this correctly, we're going to be able to sell you 6 months supply, 3 months supply, a year's supply at once, and you're done. But we're definitely going to throw in, if you're only buying beef, we're going to throw in some pork. If you eat pork, we're going to throw in some, maybe a meat bird. Turkeys. We don't talk about turkeys enough because of the turkey that
I hated
loved you a lot.
would trap me in the car until it got hit by a semi.
That was a different turkey.
Oh,
That was another turkey that also got murdered. But the turkeys, we had the thing we had going for us in Milford was we had Cobb Creek, which has changed its name. I need to find the new name, but we had a processor that was close by. I know they dress out the exact same as the chicken. In theory, everything's the same. My goodness, for $13, that was a screaming deal. So that's the other thing is, what do you want to do? And early on, you may just be able to sell enough chicken eggs to pay for your.
I think they're called Burgundy Pasture Poultry.
It is. So it's Burgundy Pasture Poultry Processing. So if you're in Central Texas, Cobb Creek, when it was Cobb Creek, did a lovely job. I know they changed hands. I've heard good things. I've got a buddy still down there in that area that's doing pastured chickens. So if you're in that area, by all means, check them out. But for back to the meat. So whatever you have, it needs to be profitable. So if you're making $1 and covering your costs for your backyard flock, along with providing all your eggs for yourself, that's a screaming deal. That really is. Now you think about time. That's the other argument that I've heard from some folks about how much time you waste. In Milford, I had close to 200 total chickens at any one time. They weren't all layers because every 6 months I'll incubate some eggs because they're aging out at 2 to 2.5 years. They really stop laying hard. So, but we had it down with the hogs, beef, moving the cows on a daily basis, feeding the chickens, gathering the eggs, washing the eggs, right at an hour a day. Be ruthless in your time management. Be ruthless in everything you do. Look for efficiencies. There are all kinds of folks that talk about running lean on homesteads, small farms. Try and get as much of this done. And if you've ever worked with any craftsmen, there's a kid at work that his dad owns an HVAC company, and we were doing some remodeling. And it just blew me away because he's a young kid, but he was always thinking about what side work could be getting done, what we could be doing next, the entire project. It was so much fun to work with him because you could tell been beat into him since he was a toddler about being efficient and making the most of his time. So do that same thing in your farm.
And if you can, try to automate as much as you can with the feeding and the watering, because that cuts down on a lot of the chores that you have to do.
Absolutely. And the other thing is we want to be able to take off for a week at a time. That's a really important, because that's the longest we're going to take a vacation. We've had one vacation in our marriage. Mm-hmm. Went to Harry Potter World. Huge mistake. I don't know what I was thinking.
He loved every minute of it.
I hate every minute away from the farm. But so one of the other things when you're just getting started are how to bundle and what to sell. Get to know your market. For us on the steaks, the thing I found, I know a lot of folks love 2-inch steaks. They're just hard to cook. So we go with 1.5-inch steaks when we recommend, because most folks have never had an animal butchered, and they're going to look to you because they have no idea how to do this. There's a great short 20-minute video on Amazon Prime called Handcrafted. And it is a chef who's also a butcher breaking out animals and showing you the cuts. That's really, really great for folks. But most folks know how to cook steaks. Some folks don't know how to cook roasts. Some do. And then hamburger. That's really what folks know how to cook. But there is a big, big market for some of this premium product that folks may not want to buy in a half or whole, but you should hold on to, because otherwise the butcher is more than happy to sell these. But beef liver is going through a renaissance right now with weightlifters and a whole bunch of basically nature loving folks. The same folks who are tanning their bottoms my wife is unfamiliar with this. She doesn't get out in the extreme fringes of Twitter like I do.
Well, in my world, they're just putting everything into the ground beef.
Right. And the big thing about liver is it really is a superfood. If you had to live on one thing, liver would be the most nutrient dense, vitamins, minerals, everything in there. So either sell the liver at a real premium or have it ground in the hamburger and spread through everything. The next thing is tongue. So lingua tacos are a thing in Texas. I never would have thought about it. There's a big demand. There are not enough tongues to meet the demand of lingua tacos. So that's one of those things where if you can find somebody that wants to have them for a quinceañera or for just to cook at home, there is a market. I have every single cow tongue from now until the end of time spoken for from a buddy who loves lingua tacos and loves cooking tongue. Beef fat, tallow. There is a huge market. Again, back with the weightlifters, folks who are really trying to eat clean for beef tallow. We have never done beef tallow because I am very, very much of the mind that your hamburger should be 20 to 25% fat. And this is one of the things folks have gotten so brainwashed, I think. Is that a term? On the 93% hamburger as far as being lean. It is garbage making hamburgers. So you add the extra fat, you get a couple of things. One, you get a patty that stays together versus when you have super lean beef, it does not want to stick together. And then the taste, that fat brings so much good mouthfeel and wonderful flavor into your beef. So that's my recommendation is I tell everybody that's where you want to be. That sweet spot. I like 80%, 80-20 on the beef to fat ratio. 75-25 isn't going to make me mad either. It's just a super juicy, great hamburger. Folks are going to be super happy with it. The other thing is having recipes for folks who buy from you who aren't familiar with how to cook a roast. And then sous vide is another great thing to be able to share with folks because it's a 60 to the sky's the limit, right, with what you can spend. But it's a really relatively inexpensive small kitchen utensil that you can throw steaks in, set them at 125, 135 degrees, 133 I think is medium rare. Leave it in there all day. So it's what the crock pot was when I was a kid. It's just this magical thing. But the steak it gets so much more tender cooked in there. You can throw in some garlic, some herbs, some butter, and just let it marinate in that while it's cooking. And you throw it on a cast iron skillet or on your grill, super high, a couple minutes on each side. It is lovely. It's dummy proof. It's one of the things that all beef producers should be talking about, helping their folks know how to cook all these things. So if you have a website, if you have even just a small cookbook or an ebook that you can make with how to cook these things. The other thing is how to make a hamburger patty. You would be surprised at how many people have never crafted a hamburger patty with their own two hands. So explaining to them, it needs to be flat as possible, because if you just have this big, thick mass of hamburger meat, my wife's trying not to laugh out loud because I'm talking about her right now. She is halfway to 90 and had never made a hamburger patty in her life. And I didn't know this because I always do all the cooking of the meat. And she's texted me about, what did you say about the hamburger?
I hope these turn out all right.
And then what happened?
I made them too thick and I had to cut them in half to finish cooking them.
So these are all things you can learn and get to your folks and make them feel comfortable, and they'll come back. That's the other thing. No one at HEB or Winco or Walmart or Whole Foods is doing this for their customers. Folks who love you, folks who believe in you, folks who are bought into your farm are going to give you referrals. Don't be afraid to let them know, hey, if you refer anybody that buys a half a beef from us, I'm going to throw in 25 pounds of meat or 10 pounds of sausage or whatever it is. Find out what works for you. And when you drop this stuff off at folks' homes, There is no law that says I'm charging you for I'm dropping off 120 pounds. You can bring sausage. You can bring eggs. Whatever you sell on your farm, honey, whatever value add that you have, butter, cheese, throw that in there. And you'll be amazed at how they'll tell their neighbors. And you can say, but you can come up with a referral incentive for your best customers, but always give them more value than what they're paying for. And finally, because this is something my wife beat me up on for years, and I knew she was right cerebrally, but I always worried about, even though folks would have been happy to do it, I didn't value my eggs enough. I undervalued that product, and I wasn't charging a premium enough price. So when someone tells you you're not charging enough, which I had several people do at the time, and we finally raised our egg prices, listen to them. I had Andrea listen to a podcast because they had a great tweet up that I saw, and I went and read their blog post. But it is much better to have 10 customers who will pay you $10 a pound for your beef than 20 customers who are only willing to pay you $5 a pound for your beef. You will be much happier. There's less work. There's more money. And you can spend more time with those folks. Gear, t-shirts with your logo on it, stickers, of all the things that I've given away. And this is not for moms. This is for dads. So if you have male customers and you give them stickers, it's wild where you will see those stickers show up. They'll put them on their cars. They'll put them on their coolers. And then you become their farmer. That is one of the great things that we've had happen is we've become a lot of folks farmers. So, and then tours. Make sure, Jill Southland pushes all the time, but give tours. Show your folks what you're doing, how you're growing, the why. Take those pictures when the place is green and pretty. Take pictures when it's dry and you're in a drought, because it lets folks know the struggle, and it makes you more human. And then when you are having good times, it's easy to root for folks when things are good. But seeing folks overcome struggle and hardship, that's a great thing too for your business. So Andrew, what did I forget today? I didn't ask you enough questions today, did I? Once again, I'm very sorry. You have nothing?
No.
I covered it all?
Yeah.
So what have you seen me improve on since we started this whole process?
Well, definitely the price of your eggs.
I've always charged a premium on the beef. I've always been out front there, but the eggs were definitely something that I was undervaluing.
And he always sets goals for the number of things that he wants to put out. And right now, we're just like in a holding pattern, trying to get more cattle, trying to get all this stuff in line so that we can actually put stuff out there
and sell it. Yeah, we have an action plan. We have a few big projects left to get done. I've got to finish out the greenhouse, get ready for the fall. We're growing some hydroponic tomatoes right now. We don't have anything in the ground. We're going to put some garlic in, probably some greens. I've got the 80-acre lease that I picked up. It's been 6 months now. So I've got to start falling trees, clearing that out, burning a bunch of things there, and getting the fencing right. And then, I'm going to reside the house. So those are the big things going into this fall. I think that just about everything else is done. So we've got, I think we're at the point now where we were in Milford. It took us 4 years to get to this point, almost 5 in Milford. And we've done it here in just over a year. So making these mistakes early and be fast to fail. Try a bunch of different things. Find out what you're good at. Find out what your soil grows well. And then if it doesn't work, great. If you find something that works and you have a market for it, see if you can get a little bit bigger. But always be trying to do your best. And as always, thank you so much for listening. I promise Andrew will talk a lot more next time. But if you have questions, please email us, put them in the comments. And thanks for listening.